You're watching the Candi Method. On today's show, I wanted to talk about how do you know if your child has anxiety. Before we get started, we do have to talk about what is anxiety. Now, anxiety is kind of your body, your mind's response to extreme stress. Anxiety can manifest very differently depending on each person. Some people feel it maybe as a gut reaction, some people maybe start to shake, some people maybe their mind starts to spiral. Anxiety is very normal. It's part of our human reaction. We were built to have anxiety for many reasons, to kind of indicate to us that our body is feeling some sort of stress. Worrying is a huge key that your child might have anxiety. Are they worrying about something in the past, something in the present, something in the future? Is their worry about something so heavy that it's preventing them from completing other tasks, other normal everyday things? Are they making up the worst case scenario in their head, so much so to the point that it's almost debilitating, to the point where they almost cannot function anymore, or maybe they can't even function anymore because they're worrying so much? Now, worrying does have some functionality in it. Worrying about certain future events can maybe mentally prepare us to encounter them. It can mentally prepare us to take on those tasks. Now, if this worry is leaving your child feeling unmotivated and is almost debilitating to them, that's kind of your indication as a caregiver that, hey, this child's anxiety is a little high, so much so that it's impacting their ability to get things done and move on with their day. Anxiety and stress really throw off your gut health. Your fight or flight response is actually being activated. And that can actually cause you to feel some sort of nausea, discomfort in your stomach. And it's your body's natural response to this discomfort, this heightened sense of tenseness. Now, does your child have some weird habits? Are they biting their nails? Are they pulling out their hair? Are they pinching themselves? The child encounters a stressor, they're going to revert to these behaviors that make them feel a lot better. And there's some sort of comforting aspect to it. And maybe it would take a professional to kind of understand the ins and outs of how this tic is related to something else. But usually it's kind of a control aspect. You can't control the stress around you, but you can control, how much you pick at your fingers, how much you bite your fingers, the hair that you're pulling out. Tics are not necessarily a bad thing, again, unless it's really impacting their health. Parents are usually the best judge to decide if the child's nervous tic is a problem or not. In most cases, I would say, that's kind of your best indicator and your best clue that your child is stressed out and feeling this sort of anxiety. And it's not a bad thing to try and stop it, but it's also not a bad thing to let this tic continue if it's not really causing any harm, because that's your biggest clue that your child needs you. Do you notice if your child is always tense? Are their jaws clenched? Are their shoulders tense? Do they report about neck pain, back pain, headaches? This can happen though if your child is carrying a lot of stress on their body. Their breathing randomly changes. It can mean that their breathing goes quicker. That means they're kind of panting. They're like, or their breathing can really slow down, where it's just what's going on for your child. And that is another clue for you as a caregiver of kids to say, something's going on with this kid. The changes in the breathing are in of themselves not a bad thing and are actually kind of beneficial because it is an indicator that the child is feeling some stress. However, if the child is panting so much so that it's almost on the verge of an anxiety attack, that is when you should seek medical attention. The first time I had a panic attack, I was 20. I was in my second year of university. I think I had 4 classes in one day. And that day I had 2 papers due, I had a presentation, and then I had an exam. So that was my first panic attack, and I was 20. But that kind of makes sense. That's a lot more stress. That is kind of an adult stress that you kind of have to get used to as transitioning into university. Now, if you're interested in seeing a video about how to respond to somebody who is having a panic attack, leave a comment down below and I'll think about making that video. I don't know. Your child's mind never seems to relax. Do they always seem in constant thought about something? Is the child's brain in a constant sense of hyperarousal? Does their mind seem like it just doesn't shut off? Now, I get this one a lot. I'm sure many people can relate to this one, but do you randomly get compulsive about doing something? Randomly, you want to just start cleaning your room out of nowhere. These random compulsions Again, they have their pluses sometimes, right? Can it lead to the kid cleaning their room? Definitely, for sure. Compulsive behavior can become a problem when it is impacting the child's ability, again, to thrive in other areas of their life. So are they choosing to stick with their compulsion rather than eat? Now, I do want to differentiate here because there is some issue with the idea of play. You know the difference between a compulsive behavior and a child who just wants to play continuously. That is challenging, and I think that would be one for a professional. If you're kind of confused about this and you want to maybe talk more about it, how about you send me an email and maybe we could work through it together. Is your child constantly seeking validation? The child who is constantly seeking validation does not feel good enough. Now, this can get confused with kind of attention-seeking behavior, and it's important to understand the difference between attention-seeking behavior and a child who is anxious and needs their confidence built up, has a lot of self-doubt, has a lot of confidence issues, emotional instability. Do you feel like your child is emotionally unstable? Happy one second, tantrum the next? Today's video is about how do you know if your child has anxiety. I've been working with children and families for the past 10 years in various capacities, sometimes with kids, sometimes with parents, sometimes in roles that combine both, and most recently just as an official child and family therapist. I've worked inside of schools, so I've worked with teachers and administrators. I've worked with clinicians and psychologists, doctors, speech language therapists. So I have a breadth of knowledge that I'm kind of bringing here. So I also have a certificate in trauma-informed cognitive behavior therapy and mental health first aid for children who interact with youth. If you have any videos that you would like to see with specific topics related to these areas, if you work with youth or you just have questions, please leave a comment down below, follow, subscribe, email me. I want to make this information accessible to the public.